Good evening, everybody. We are back with another episode of Tales from the Tavern. Hope you all are doing really well. I have a super great group of guests here, most of which are all new faces to the channel, except for Brianna, who is making her second appearance. Couple quick announcements before we go around into introductions. First announcement is that we now have a channel point redemption. Yay! For Tales from the Tavern. There is now a channel point redemption called Ask My Question Next, and it can be redeemed up to 3 times every stream. It costs 1,000 channel points, and that will bump your question up to the next one asked on the stream. So if you have a question that you are dying to make sure we have time to answer, you can go ahead and use that one, and it will bump your question to the next one up in the queue. So make sure you use that. Otherwise, we will, just keep on plugging through like we usually do. So we also have some new channel points that will go into effect for our 50 Shades of Crimson campaign on Wednesday. We'll talk about those on Wednesday. So I want to go around and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. So, Brianna, we're going to start with you.
Hi, I'm Brianna Jean. You can find me at btoiber on Twitter, which, don't worry if you don't know how to spell that, most people don't. I do basically everything over at Pseudonym Social, which is a lot easier to find. I DM and produce a bi-weekly Esper Genesis podcast called Aboard the Opal Star, which is all kinds of space pirate shenanigans, and it's grown a lot in the exactly 6 months it's been around, and I'm very proud of it, because I had no idea what I was doing when I started. Now I have a vague idea of what I'm doing. I've also recently started releasing a second one that I'm a player in and doing all the production for, called Disciples of the Eight, which is more of an epic fantasy tale, and we do have an hour-and-a-half recap of everything that's happened since we've started, which was a lot. I've got a couple other projects in the works eventually in the future, because I'm addicted to podcast production and want to do that full-time someday.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for coming back on again. I'm glad we could help celebrate the 6-month anniversary of your podcast.
I'm so excited. Like, my baby is 6 months old. I'm so proud.
I get that feeling.
It's also, people have been listening to me talk for this long and they still like it.
I know that feeling very well. Next, we're going to head down to Ray.
We are going counterclockwise.
We are going counterclockwise.
I have praised some chaos god. Hello, I'm Ray. You may have seen me, you may not have. You can find me over at Red Mage Ray on Twitter. I am one of the co-founders of the TTRPG group Friends Who Roll Dice. You may have seen that around the interwebs. We are a group of streamers who go ahead and get a whole bunch of awesome people on for a whole bunch of awesome charity shows. We do have one regular weekly show at the moment, The Mind of the Martyr, which I GM myself. And we have a whole bunch of other shows on the way. I wish I could say more, but they're all in like the final planning phases, so I'm just like, there's stuff. Eventually. That's all I can really do right now. But we pride ourselves on being as diverse as we can be. So keep an eye.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited that we got to have you on. And let's see. Next, we're going to go to Dr. Curtis.
Yes, it's I'm Dr. Curtis Satterfield, but it's just Curtis to everyone. As I said before, only my students and people I don't like have to call me doctor. The whole point of getting my PhD. So I teach computer science and video game development, and I have been playing RPGs for about 20 years, and video games actually since I was in 6th grade, because that's when I got an original NES. I'm that old, yes. And I've been playing them since then. I'm terrible at video games, though, but I love them. So that's what I do. You can find me at Prof. Satterfield on Twitter. I'm not a content creator, at least not on YouTube for free. All my content's paywalled because it's all videos for my online classes. So, sorry. If you want to see more, come take a class.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and hang out with us tonight, and spend some time talking games. Aaron, let's go to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron. I'm at ShadyGod13 on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also not a content creator, but as I told these folks, I'm a content booster. I like to support TTRPG projects on Twitter and boost out projects for people left and right. I am a longtime TTRPG player, longtime video game player. I also got my first original NES when I was 9 years old, so I'm with you there, Curtis. I play in 3 different games. I run a introductory D&D campaign for preteens, which has been an interesting process.
My daughter just turned 13. I can't imagine how that must be.
Yeah.
We can share stories later. I ran a game for 10 8-year-olds
Oh my gosh.
2 years ago for my son's birthday.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about that.
Not gonna lie,
More
I've
patient
been kind
than
of
me.
tempted to see if my teenage cousins would be interested in me doing like a little one-off thing for them, like do something for the family. But like, let's be real, like maybe the kids, maybe my uncle would be interested and might play along. Grandparents are just gonna nope.
All right, and Connor, let's give you a chance to introduce yourself.
All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Connor, the Masterful Nerd. That's at Masterful Nerd on Twitter. I'm the creator and host of the podcast Awkward Segue, the show that takes listener questions and then jokes about them without giving any satisfying answers to them whatsoever.
Oh, I love it.
I've been playing D&D for a good few years. I love it. We're currently working on our own D&D live play show, but no date for that. That's me.
Awesome.
I talk about D&D. It has consumed my life. I could not see this.
When I first joined, when I first started playing, my mom made a joke about like, "Oh, you better not get addicted." A couple years later, I'm just like, "Yeah, about that."
Oops.
All right. Well, chat, as most of you that have been here before know, we love to get our questions from chat. So please feel free to drop your questions right in the chat. We've got mods who will make sure that we see them and that we are able to answer them. Don't forget about our new Ask My Question Next channel point redemption. So you can check that out as well. But the first question that we have tonight is one actually that Curtis told us he saw on Twitter today and sounded like a very interesting topic. So basically the question is, how do you feel about the term homebrew? And the person who posted on Twitter, I guess, more asked it in the context of why do I not like this word so much? So I'm curious what you guys all think and what you think about the word homebrew.
I homebrew a lot of stuff. I personally kind of like the word. I like it's like a fun phrase. I don't know why. I arbitrarily like it, but I've spoken to somebody before who, when I said the word homebrew, they were like, "Whoa!" It's like, don't say I do that. I was like, okay, we're chill. We're all cool here.
I think one of the things that it has to do with is some people, going way back, the term homebrew came about as referring to the system and the rules, not necessarily a setting. So if you're playing D&D 5e in your own world, you know, that's one thing. But if you're like, oh, I made my own TTRPG and I'm playing, you know, that's... So some people view it as homebrew is the rules and the systems. Some people say anything that's not in an officially printed book is homebrew. And, some people think, well, we should call it custom, we should call it special, something other than homebrew. And some people, like Connor just said, it's, they like the word, they're fine with it. So there were a lot of different responses on Twitter about it. And I think the problem is there's too wide of an array. There's no real meaning to the word. So just sort of throwing it out there and being like, oh, homebrew, it covers so many things. It's one of those words that means too many things to too many different people to really, I think, make a decisive answer about and be like, oh, it's good, it's bad. Is it good for the hobby? Is it bad for the hobby?
I personally think it's very good for the hobby. I mean, I'm with Connor. I'm with Curtis. I have never had a problem with the idea of homebrew. I personally have always. I rarely use the term homebrew when I'm doing stuff. I use house rules. If I'm in a system and running it with people, there's rarely a system that I have used that I haven't edited in some way. Because there's a rule I don't like, there's a mechanic I'm not fond of, so I house rule it. And then so I for me personally, I consider if you're editing the system itself, you're giving it a house rule. If you have something brand new you've created to insert into it, that's homebrewed. That's how I feel about it.
That makes sense.
My kind of understanding of the definition, because I've been in a couple of campaigns, haven't actually finished a campaign yet, but the way I always thought is because there are the books that their own campaign guide and all of that, so I've never actually played in one of those, so I always understood homebrew, the difference between homebrew it's the one where you create the setting and all of that versus the ones where a lot of people use the term modules for the different books that have their own campaign, like Curse of Strahd. So that's kind of been my understanding, but I also know sometimes people will make up their own items and stuff like I've done that before. Well, I've taken items from D&D, put them in Espergenesis, and then added some tweaks to them. I also just straight up made an amulet that lets my fighter do lay on hands because she's like, can I do this? I'm like, no, frantically writes up item.
But you can now.
That's just
Yeah, true.
it's like it's expansion on stuff that's already there in a way, but I'm still new to the community. Well, 3 years new to the community.
Yeah, my opinion's on a similar vein to everyone else's. Homebrew is building on something that you already have, and I think I just went ahead and kind of poked at the thread real quick because I hadn't seen it. It seems like a lot of people have forgotten that homebrew is not a TTRPG term. It's used in TTRPG, but it doesn't originate in TTRPG. You've got homebrew video game consoles, you've got the original homebrew moonshine and things like that. Things that it's literally just people going ahead and making something with the parts of something else that then creates something new. It's just jury rigging something together, essentially.
The original personal computer.
Yeah, that's kind of simplifying it a little bit, perhaps. But yeah, if it's something pieced together that is original and your own and takes inspiration from something else, and you want to go ahead and leave that to the side and say it's your own thing, then it's your own thing. If you're taking something from a couple of systems and you want to call it homebrew, call it homebrew. It's whatever you fancy.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It makes sense to me too. All right. Well, we've had a couple of questions come in already, so I'm going to start throwing them at you. Let's see. The first one comes from Zeal Zaddy, Zealzaddy says, Brianna tweeted today, I'm also really, this is a quote, so hopefully you don't mind, Brianna. I'm also really bad
This is
about
fine, I don't
comparing
remember.
myself with other DMs.
Oh yeah, that.
Currently having a bit of self-doubt and anxiety weekend. It's great. Do you all feel this
Yeah,
about whom, and how do you get past this?
Yeah, I provide some context for that though.
Go for it.
One of my players in the campaign I'm running runs a campaign that I'm in, and we've been friends for like the longest time. And I recently did a dungeon crawl that I feel didn't do very well. Then I played in one of his, and like at some point during the session, like I was just having a blast. I was so intensively involved, and had the thought of maybe he should be running Board the Opal Star. So sometimes it's hard to not kind of look at what you have and then look at what they have and think, maybe they would do this better. But also, it's my baby, and I don't want anyone to touch it. It's with any creative thing, it's hard to not kind of compare what you're doing to what other people are doing, especially when you're running it, because you don't know what the experience is like on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely true. And the old adage that everyone says and no one follows, don't compare yourself to others, because no two people are the same. No two people are going to have the same experiences and provide. Everybody, while I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but while Critical Role has done wonders for the TTRPG community, I think some of it's hurt a little bit too, because everybody's like, oh God, I have to run I have to be a GM like Matt Mercer. I have to do 500 voices and be in character 100% of the time. And no, you don't. As long as people at your table are having a good time, that's what's important. It doesn't matter if you're as good as somebody else or better than, as long as the 4, 5, 6, 10 people you're hanging out with playing RPGs have a good time, that's what your benchmark is.
Yeah.
Oh. Absolutely. I mean, I know I've seen at least, maybe like 2-3 different like D&D TTRPG YouTube creators talk about the Matt Mercer effect and how it has impacted the TTRPG community. And I agree with you, Curtis. Critical Role has done an amazing thing for the TTRPG community, but it doesn't mean your game has to be Critical Role or your game has to be Critical Role. No, your game has to be your game. And you're right. I mean, I know that I myself have compared myself to the numerous different dungeon masters, game masters that I have played with, and over time you realize that it's less about comparing your style with their style. It's more understanding that they do it their way and I do it my way, and so long as we're having fun, that's the important thing. And you sort of adjust your style as your games progress, and you take the criticism and the positive and negative criticism that you get in return from your players, and you adapt. You try to just keep it as, don't compare yourself. Just remember that everybody's a different person, and you just be you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think, everything that's been said is super correct. It's like, because everything, like what you said, everybody compares themselves, even though they know they shouldn't compare themselves to others. But I think as long as you maintain the focus on everybody at the table having fun, there's nothing to worry about. As long as you're having as long as you're doing it your way, having fun with all your players, making sure everybody's accounted for, that's it. You're already a great DM then.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I agree exactly with what you said, Curtis, about Critical Role too. I appreciate it for what it is and for what it's done for the TTRPG community, in that it's been the gateway for a lot of people to come in and start playing. But at the same time, a question that we get on here a lot, or that I've been asked a lot, is, I'm so excited. I've been watching Critical Role, and I'm going to start playing D&D. What's my first session going to be like? And I'm going to be like, it's going to be nothing like Critical Role. So get that out of your mind right now. And then, basically what everybody here has said, as long as you're having fun, that's great. And it's okay if it takes you a couple of tries to find the right group of people or to find the right story. It happens. It happens to everybody at least once, if not more. So, yeah, I think that, I don't DM, but I think everybody runs into that issue. I run into it all the time as a player. Oh my god, that person's so much better at RPing than I am, and
the comparing and the imposter syndrome of like, why do people like me? My stuff isn't all that good. Look at all these amazing other people who are doing things, and then you listen to mine? Really?
Yeah. I mean, people have already said Matt Mercer, but also people like Brendan Lee Mulligan. I myself have GM'd for Abria Iyengar. I'm sorry, I butchered your last name. And she is also an individual that I look up to, because I GM'd for Abria once, and then went and checked out all of their stuff, and it was like, cool, alright, awesome, this is great, and then binged for like a week of just all of Saving Throws show, essentially. Pretty much all of the Rivals of Waterdeep cast, Persephoroth, those kind of people. And the one thing I've learned, I think, is it's going to happen. So don't compare. Integrate. What do you like from that person that you're looking at? What is there that you enjoy? Because someone actually said it in chat a second ago. Every GM has strengths and weaknesses. Doesn't matter whether they're professional or not. Everyone has those strengths and weaknesses. Being able to take that, and instead of comparing and putting yourself down for it, going, okay, so what could I experiment with to make my style different? That doesn't necessarily mean copying, but taking the good points that you like and seeing whether they work with your style is the habit that I've tried to get into when it comes to looking at other GMs.
I think that's the best way to do it.
I've been working on that too. Another thing I've done with the Board the Opal Star is like, I've pulled in some people from other productions, people that I look up to a lot, like David Tilstra, Patch, Nick from Know Your Role.
I love those guys.
And I'm just like, hey, I have like these like character spots for story stuff. Would you like to come in and fill this spot and then help me build everything around it? Which has turned out to be some amazing decisions, because I've been able to work with them to develop these different parts of the story that the players, like, they still haven't gotten to any of that stuff yet. I'm starting to lay the threads, but it's like more in-game stuff that I have planned. But just sometimes reaching out and working with people that you look up to and admire as DMs or storytellers can be really helpful. And I've also reached out to Chris a couple of times from Discount Dungeons about how do I build a good thing and not kill everyone?
Yeah.
Because I know he's a lot better at that than I am.
Yeah, he's great.
He's also really good at building things that can kill people.
Yes. Yes, he is. Having played a one-shot with him, yes, he is.
I was in a one-shot with him, too, that was just for fun. He's like, how difficult do you want to see? And we said, let's go for the TPK. Why not? Second round of the boss fight, he turns into an ancient red dragon. It's like, did ask for this.
Nice.
I think another, just to add on to the discussion, an important thing is, as Ray said, you can incorporate the things that the DMs and other players you aspire to be into your style. And it's important to understand it's a learning process. And as an educator, I can tell you, learning takes time. So it's going to take you time to learn what works for you, and also it's going to take you time to learn how to do things well. It's a minimum of about 21 days to get into a habit of doing something. And if you're only playing a game session 4 hours once every week, 2 weeks, it's going to take you several sessions to really get into a groove and start to remember, okay, I need to do these things, and this is how I should prep and take into account. And always, I say this all the time, talk to your...
Oh, reconnection successful.
Please behave.
Huzzah!
Yay!
We're back.
Yay!
We are back. Okay, great. There we go. So, I panicked for a little bit there because I literally was
Twitch
just
tired of that question.
I was just asking one of the mods in a private Discord chat. I'm like, are we dropping frames? Is Twitch okay? And they're like, no, I'm having issues too. And then right below I see on OBS it says, disconnected, attempting reconnection. And I'm like, no!
Oh, Twitch. Don't ever change.
I know, right?
Or actually,
It's changed.
maybe change.
Maybe change a little
Maybe a
bit.
few, just like here or there.
I was gonna say, yeah, no,
little
please.
bit.
Also,
Major
if
changes.
Discord could kindly undo whatever they did that made Craigbot stop working, that would be great.
Right? I know.
I'm
What the heck, Craigbot?
Yeah, Lawful Great Adventures lost 2 recordings in the last month because
Oh,
Craigbot didn't work.
no.
Yeah, we're talking like 4-hour sessions.
Yeah.
Do.
Also, so Zencaster are solid, easy things back up locally, so if there's issues with things, it's easier to get back to, and they removed all of the caps due to COVID, so that's what I've switched to since Craig ate most of my Christmas one-shot and made me really, really sad, because there were some
There
really
you
funny
go.
moments in there.
All right, you heard
I
it
wasn't
there.
that great,
Brianna-
but everyone else was.
Brianna's recommendation, Zencaster. There you go.
There you go.
All right, so
Do it.
let's move on to Star Shinobi asked a question. She would like to
Oh.
know. Yeah.
Star.
She would
Hi,
like
Star.
to know, what was your favorite way a GM started an adventure, or if you are a GM, what is your favorite way to bring a party together with your campaign opening?
Okay, I immediately know my answer. So, it's also slightly a shameless plug because it is the start of the Mind of the Martyr. We had a relatively big party at the time, and even though people knew people individually and from Twitter, we hadn't actually had everyone in a place at the same time. So we jumped on a Zoom call and decided, after kind of during and / after our session 0, what we were going to do. We decided to have 2 sessions off screen that were full, just regular play sessions of the before part. The setting of Mind of the Martyr is kind of gas lamp fantasy, so steampunk mixed with magic.
Love that.
Steampunk mixed with magic in a setting and context of high fantasy, so it's a little more complex than just a steampunk setting. So we got everyone, one way or another, onto this airship that was, to their knowledge, just a regular airship, but it had actually been that a crime lord had invited everyone onto the ship individually and pulled everyone together. Our debut episode, then, we spent 2 days behind the scenes, or 2 sessions, sorry, on this ship, running around, learning to meet people, etc. The very first session, people were abducted. The ship started crashing. They had to jump on a bunch of light cycles in order to fly off the ship. And as they were crash landing, a second ship opened fire. So the entire initial episode was essentially a chase sequence between these characters on these steampunky crystal cycles and this large ship, which literally just came out of nowhere from Black Mist, which it was super fun to GM, and the players had a blast with it, and it was a little different than, it starts in a tavern. So, yeah, that's got to be my favorite.
Love that. That's super cool.
That's really fun.
So I've Only bit, like, because one of the campaigns I'm in, I actually missed the first session, so they picked my character up in the potion shop that her siblings made her work in the back of. So how I started things with Aboard the Opal Star is, like, 3 players, like, their characters, two of them had worked together for some stuff in the past. One they recognized, but they hadn't really talked to, because the Ashen Forge in that particular area just are treated like sentient furniture, because the Federation's great, guys. But they were basically summoned to come to a certain base to get information about a job. And so they're ushered by a little robot into this room where there's someone already waiting there. Have to wait for a while, and basically the only contact they have with anyone up until the mission is with this robot, and they're not allowed to contact anyone else, and it was all just very suspicious and very strange, and they didn't get the full truth of what was going on until the end of session 3, which was about episodes 5 or 6. Just when I took what they thought they knew and flipped it. It's fun.
Rad.
I just played a one-shot recently where my character was in the brig of essentially a space station, and everybody else in the party worked there.
Oh,
So that was fun.
It does sound fun.
It actually was a really, really fun game, so.
Kinda referencing back to the previous question, there was something I saw on a Dimension 20 that Brennan Lee Mulligan does, and I just kind of snatched that, and I was like, I'm going to use this forever.
When the different characters came in, so they each kind of got their moment to have an initial reaction, but I love that.
I just think it's super fun.
I actually used a version of that.
I think we might be down again.
Uh-oh.
Maybe.
Twitch.
Don't do it, Twitch.
Please.
By God, I'll turn your entire
I'll turn this
platform
stream
into
right around!
Seriously, Twitch?
It didn't say that we went down, but it looks like Twitch is just being wonky.
I think it doesn't like me.
Oh, no, there it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, no! Oh, wait.
Oh, no!
Yay!
Yay! No, yay,
What a
no!
roller coaster.
that was up and down, and oh man,
Good lord.
went backwards at one point.
More emotions than ever before.
I was gonna say that I used Connor. I used a very similar technique when I ran a campaign before, where the basis of the campaign was that there's only one known continent in this world, and on that known continent there are basically only the common races, and any other uncommon race is more along the lines of rare or basically non-existent to that point. And so I had each of the characters, each one was a example of a monstrous race or a non-common race, and each of them was individually picked up by a traveling sideshow. And so I had each one describe how they got picked up by the sideshow, what they were doing at the time, and so by the time I got to the last character, they were all then part of the sideshow and had been together for a certain amount of time. And so each one was essentially a conscripted member of this traveling sideshow.
I like that.
It was fun.
The other introduction I had for Disciples of the Eight was we all woke up in the alleyway with no memory of the past 6 months or how we knew each other.
Oh, wow.
And we're immediately approached, but I was like, I don't know how I know you, but I know I know you and trust you with my life, which is weird for my character because she's paranoid because most people do want to kill her on sight. It's just a thing. When your people are the king's spies and assassins, and you're not one of his spies and assassins, most people do want to kill you for one reason or another. We were quickly kind of led into a bar by someone working for the king who told us that apparently he had been hired to kill the king, and had gotten closer than anyone else ever had. We ended up failing, and he dropped us to hell, except for the person was able to redirect us into this alleyway, so we had about 4 months-ish? No. 4 months, I think? Something like that. Before the king finds out we're still alive. And in that time, we have to find these 8 different sources of power following this glowing locket, so we can take or destroy all the sources of power before he finds out that we're still alive, and then we have to go kill him.
Oh, excuse me.
So the episodes start right as we find the second one with the calm after the storm is the first one. We've been playing for a while, but it was a lot of fun, especially when we finally got all of our memories back and realized the king knows exactly who we all are, which for my character is not a good thing. Everyone believes she's been dead for 20 years, and she's like, no one needs to know I'm alive, because the second the people know I'm alive, I'm dead.
One of my favorite introductions is not nearly as exciting as Ray's. There are no airships or light cycles, unfortunately. But I have a take on everyone meets in a tavern, which is, instead of a tavern, it's the Adventurers Guild. And because they're all adventurers, and they need adventure, so they all end up going there. And it's an easy way to sort of, if everybody's backstory is just like, completely different, and how do I get these people together? So they go to the Adventurers Guild, and I give them all what sound like different adventures. And I'm remiss to admit this because I know some of my players are watching tonight, but they sound like different adventures. But sorry, folks, I put on my conductor's hat. It's a railroad. You're going to the place I want you to go.
There you go.
And they don't realize it, and they get there, and then the next thing they're a party, and it's great. So, I like to always give that illusion of choice. But whether you like it or not, you're probably going to end up in a place where you need to be. So, don't spend too much time coming up with your scenes, because a lot of times players aren't going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have creative ways of twisting their path, you can sort of guide them. And I'm not a fan of railroading whatsoever. Like, honestly, my current game started as a module. I used the first chapter of Dragon Heist. And after that, actually sort of into chapter 2, they now have their own home base. And after that, they were like, I want to do this thing. Boom, that's not in the book. All right, let's do it. Let's go. And since then, I've just been, whatever direction they have wanted to go, I'm like, that's what we're going to do. And I'll make up scenes that fit, what they want to do. And I'll ask them, what do you think happens? Or what are you expecting to find? Those sorts of things. And then what they say is usually what happens, unless it's, extremely ludicrous. Like, oh, I want to find the key to the vault. Maybe not.
Yeah. With doing a podcast, one of the things I've done is, like, I have certain plot points that mark the end of different arcs, and they all tie into the characters' stories in one way or another. So, like, I leave space, and I leave space for, like, different kinds of adventures to go on. Every once in a while I'll ask, okay, kind of what's something y'all want to do next, side plot things. But all the while I, like, lay threads to a situation to lead up to where they get to this certain point, a thing happens. And so it's like, I'm trying to balance between, like, a little bit of, like, not full-on railroading, but it's just like, there's a plot point that need to happen, and I really need you to not kill this person. And giving them time to just kind of explore and have their own personal journeys before I just pull them into this thing going on over here.
Makes sense.
Which has
I think
nothing
the
to
real
do
question,
with
though, is Ray, tell us more about your steampunk magic stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta say that light cycle thing. I mean, I want one.
Steampunk is my jam, so I want to hear more about this.
Well, actually, the
It's one
campaign
of those
the game-
cases. it's one of those cases as a GM where you're like, okay, I like this, and I like this, and I like this. How am I gonna? Or I could just mesh it all together and see what happens. It really is one of those cases where it's just you take your inspirations, you go ahead and say, I'm just going to pick parts, and then you're like, no, that's not going to happen. It's a setting that I kind of let my players build originally. So everything that's happened in every single game in the world is canon. So that world has existed for over 8 years now. That's all. That's how that works essentially. So God knows what is in there.
Yeah. I was in the game I was in last night. It's been going for a couple years. The only one that's not being recorded, but it is very steampunk. But the DM has definitely started leaning hard into H.P. Lovecraft because we're trying to stop the Yellow King. We're in Miskatonic University. Lots of the gothic horror going on. Walked into a room of what I was like pretty sure was going to be a boss fight. Turn around, there's only one other party member there. Everyone else is gone. I'm like, oh boy.
Well.
Also, you put Mrs. Charisma with doesn't talk a whole lot and has memory problems. I'm like, oh boy, this is great. We haven't all died yet. So our ranger mouthed off to a lich, so that almost ended incredibly poorly.
Ooh.
Then again, in another campaign, our Warforged dropkick Asmodeus through a door, so...
Incredible.
Those consequences are coming for us.
Oh, what's the worst he could do?
Send his daughter after us.
Why would you say
just
things
hope-
like that?
I just like to raise flags, you know?
It's important to give the GM cues about what you're expecting to happen.
Someone's got to subtly instigate
Hey,
all
we
the
did-
fights.
Oh, this is definitely going to happen now, right? Well, it is now.
It is now.
Hold on, let me get my notebook. I just need to... Has nothing to do with the conversation.
Okay, so
I just need to check
it-
something.
Right. Famous last words.
In session zero, one of my players made a comment on, hey, like maybe at some point my character might notice that someone put out a hit on your character. I'm like, starts typing notes. You can't get mad at me when I do that because she suggested it.
You brought it
Of
up.
course, I'm not going to use it for what they think I'm going to use it for.
That's wild.
At least not the first time. No guarantees on if they piss anyone else off enough to put a hit out on them. Or bounty on their head. Whichever.
Yeah.
Feel like that sometimes.
Right now they have a little bit of both. Not that those episodes are anywhere near out yet, so sorry, spoilers. I keep forgetting where we're at.
You've been warned.
We just published the stuff from session 10 and just recorded 17.
Ahaha, there you go.
Jeez.
Yeah. I've got a lot of editing to do. A lot. That's not including all the sound design I have to do for both. There's a reason they're both bi-weekly, and I have Disciples edited through July.
Nice.
Oof.
Because I don't want to die.
Fair. That's a valid thing to not want.
I mean, honestly, that's probably one of the best, reasons to do a thing. Is because you don't want to die.
Yeah.
I'd hope so.
I'm editing this
Yeah.
podcast because I yearn for death.
Oh God.
In fairness, there are
One of
some
my
people
DMs
out there that would probably listen to a podcast that is nothing but one really long meat grinder of just churning through characters for
Oh my
like
God.
man.
5-6 sessions. I should
know,
get on
there-
that.
Oh, it sounds like a
And there were
DCC
some
session
points-
0.
It's every session.
Just everyone has like a list of characters, and they're all on one big ship together, and only go out in small groups. So whenever one dies, you can switch into another one.
You won't
Yeah.
complain about having too many characters and not enough games to play them in.
Yeah.
Let's
So
knock
bring
them all out in one game.
Right?
So bring
What do you
5
need
of
for
your
the favorite
favorites.
spreadsheet?
Yeah, no, my one of my DMs has said just like go ahead, like create backup characters. Let me know what they are so I can make sure they're on the ship. So if anything happens to you, so it's cool. Like, cool. I'm gonna make sure at least one of my backup characters is a rogue, so we can actually have a rogue. We have all of the skills of a rogue together, but no one knows thieves can't. So the real rogue is a friend we made along the way, except for none of us can speak it.
That's always fun when a group has like so many things that kind of mesh well together, and then there's that one thing that they all really should be able to do but can't.
Yeah.
I have a
My DM has finally given me the permission to change my character from a sorceress to an arcane trickster. So I'm like, thank goodness, it's probably what she should have been to begin with, because she's a potion smuggler. Okay, it makes sense.
I have a ranger who cannot shoot with her bow if her life depended on it. And not by my making. Like, she just, every time I go to roll to shoot an arrow, it's like 4, 6.
Oh my.
And I'm like, and then like I'll roll like one really good roll, and I'll be like, see, I can do this. 3. And I'm like,
Universe,
Not gonna lie,
why do
the
you
first-
hate me?
right?
The first time
The 20.
my paladin was able to hit anything in our game that had been going on for over a year was the first fight we recorded on the podcast. And we were at the bottom of the ocean. She had borrowed the monk's spear because she left her weapons on the ship, and I got to kill the Kraken. It was great.
Awesome.
But it was really frustrating for a while because, like, my paladin can intimidate, but she can't hit anything. So that's why I don't know how melee combat works, because I never roll high enough to bother.
That's why I like spellcasters. I just get enough spells. It's like if I get tired of missing, here we go.
Right.
There's a spell here that just can't miss, or even if they roll above it, they'll still take damage.
Exactly.
So make me feel better about
How-
myself spells.
My ranger.
That's why you have the shoot from afar and the get away from me spells.
So thankfully, I'm playing first edition Pathfinder, and one of the archetypes of a ranger that you can take is a shapeshifter. So she's actually now a shapeshifter, and she can become a bear once a day. So
There you go.
I'm like,
So she doesn't need the bow
problem
anymore.
solved.
But how good is
Exactly.
the bear with the bow?
Bear doesn't
Also,
use the
with
bow.
the-
Bear just uses claws. I'd love to try
Also,
that, though. I should do that sometime, just for the heck of it.
Does that make you your
Also,
own animal companion?
Yes.
Your animal companion
I
was
did a
inside you all
one-shot where
along.
someone did a feral tiefling ranger that the character entirely exists. She could just like put her bow on her horns when she wasn't using it.
That's awesome. We have there's a person in our party who is very strong, not super bright, and hasn't quite figured out that Evie is my ranger's name. That Evie is also the bear that keeps showing up on occasion. So every so often, Evie will transform into a bear, and he'll just be like, "Where'd this bear come from?" It's pretty awesome.
Thank you once again,
love
kind
it.
bear.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a stick figure drawing in our Discord of Evie as a bear, Shula, who is an oracle, which is basically our healer, casting guidance on the bear, and the other character who is Osgar, who basically is like the equivalent of a WWF fighter, wrestler. Like, you know, like this is his persona, but outside of that, he's really like, he still lives at home with his parents, and so the picture is the bear, Shula casting guidance on the bear, and Osgar in the background going, "Oh no."
Beats me.
Yeah.
It's a bear.
It's a bear. All right. Well, given the time, we have a bunch of other questions that have come in, but we're starting to get up to the point that we usually would take a break. So before throwing another question out, I figure we'll take a break now, and then we will hit the questions up that we have been getting afterwards. Because I've got, probably at least another 5 more that have come in. So
from the question.
no, it's all good. Plus, you know, like Twitch deciding it was going to do its own thing for a
Right.
little while, and yeah. So
That too.
oh yeah, and then
That too. That was mildly.
Apache just said in chat, and then he's surprised when Evie shows up. He's like, "Did you see that bear?
You just missed it.
just
It was
missed it.
crazy.
There was a bear running along the rooftops. Did you see it?"
I have a druid character. She's a half elf and she grew up on the street, so she doesn't fully realize she was a druid. And the one time I got to play her like a party, he's like, "What are you?" Because she could cast Tiny Hut, which is technically Bard Wizard spell. And she's just like, "Maybe I'm a sorcerer, makes plants grow." Mentions one time she thinks she turned into a bear once. I don't know. It was
I don't
weird.
know. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back shortly. So stick around. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into chat while we are on our break, and we will try to get to them all afterwards. And we will see you in just a couple minutes.
a fast bear.
That's an incredible bear. I mean, he got up on this airship too. It's amazing.
Yay, bears getting up on
Airship.
airships. We are back. So
Woohoo!
we made it a really, really short break so we could get back to everybody's questions, especially while Twitch is still working. So
Oh yeah.
I feel really bad because we had a couple of new people in our chat tonight that have never caught an episode of Tales, and they were like, it's really bummer that it's not working correctly. I'm like, oh, I feel really bad, but unfortunately, I'm like, at least it's not on our end, so that makes me feel a little bit better about myself. But
Blame
You
Twitch.
can always go back and watch old ones.
yes, that's exactly what they are going to do.
But you
So,
can do that. Yeah.
yep, that's exactly what they're going to do. All right, so
So
let's
that's far
dive.
enough. You can find the P Elemental one. That was hilarious.
That was really funny. Yes, well, we're on week 13, so you've got 12 prior episodes that you can catch up on if they're not here on our channel for the VODs, because Twitch only keeps them for 2 weeks. You can catch them all on our YouTube. So you can go over there and catch all of those. All right, so let's dive back in. We have another question from Zealzaddy, and they would like to know, I love to occasionally use flashbacks, flash forwards, and cutscenes. Do you use them, and how do you incorporate them?
Ooh, interesting.
Yes, I love cutscenes, and it helps with one of the biggest problems you can have when the players split the party, and that's 3 people, 4 people sitting around watching one other person for like 45 minutes go shopping or something mundane, and doing the cutscenes. It's like, okay, you start off, you go here, and then when you get to like a critical moment, okay, now we're back over to you, and what are you doing? And it not only invests the one person who's like, wait, what's happening to me? Then everybody else is sort of like, oh, I can't, I want to hear what's happening to that person as well. So I absolutely love using the cutscenes. It helps tremendously.
So much fun. So I experienced that last night. That's so much fun. I've been doing a bit of that. I'm looking to incorporate it more because one of my characters, she doesn't remember anything from the first at least 5 years of her life. She just recently figured out was able to remember how old she was. She was in a space that's not where she was originally from. So like for a long time, the memories didn't come back. But now they're starting to, so I'm starting to incorporate that, and then some of them is going to be it's going to come back in dreams. And I've also done a couple of sort of taking the focus off of the main game and like shifting it to another part of the universe for about like 5 minutes to sort of show some of the things that are going on outside. Like one of them involves the person who put the bounty on their heads. So I have a scene for that I still have not let them listen to. But sometimes just having those bits of context about things can add more interest and intrigue to certain situations, because you know it, but your character doesn't. And it can be a fun thing to play with in a way to maybe sort of misguide or mislead, or like give them just a tidbit and see what they come up with and see how close it is what you have planned. Also showing them the consequences of the dumb things that they do sometimes.
Perfect. I'd say I probably have the same answer as Curtis, where it's just if the party gets split up like that, or if they have to flash around, it's just wait for the right moment to cut. It's especially good if you can get like the right dramatic moment in a scene, just to like be like, oh, and we'll be right back to this. Really make them want it.
Yes.
I think in my experience of if I'm going to use like a flashback type of thing, it's used in like a downtime circumstance, cutscene type of thing. It's like, okay, well, you guys are here now. What were you doing 2 weeks ago? And giving each of them that sort of that flashback moment of like, well, I did this, I was doing this, whatever have you. It gives them that case to kind of showcase a cutscene of their own personal thing, and each one has that opportunity to go, well, I was doing this in one point, and other games that I've played in, the DM or the GM has used that sort of similar circumstance in the split the party type of thing. You're over here, what's going to happen, that kind of thing. So I find the cutscene thing to be very good, but I also like it to be a little malleable. So like if it's a single person doing something, they have the opportunity to interrupt the cutscene to alter something, like if they want to interrupt somebody in the middle of it, okay, what are you going to do then?
I love them.
Yes.
Flashbacks, flash forwards, and the like are fantastic narrative tools for various different reasons. Some people here have already covered some of the reasons, but it's also a fantastic way to get your player more attached to the character, showing their past, giving them an actual organic foundation. Your character wasn't always an adventurer. What were they here for? What were they doing? Flash forwards, it's a fantastic way to create tension and create drama and something worth fighting for. It's a fantastic way to introduce characters in a natural way that perhaps they may not find regularly, or at least they may not find for some time. It's a fantastic way to add more lore to your world, and giving your players a modicum of control over those flashbacks and flash forwards means that they get to add their own stamp on the world as well. I just really enjoy them. They're super versatile. I love them when they come up. Mind of the Martyr currently, our blade singing wizard, has completely lost their memory from the very first session. So they just kind of went, "Hey, I don't really have a backstory for this character. Here you go, mess me up." So it's been a lot of interesting flashbacks and flash forwards and other such things to get their character built. They're just super, super useful and fluid and versatile tools, and I'd recommend giving them a shot. Just don't make them last too long, is the only bit of advice I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm working on a couple flashback scenes with some of my players, but like with the one that has memory loss, I have complete and total control over that part of her backstory, though. Now that she started remembering things, I'm like, there's some things I have like set in place, but I'm trying to make sure she has a space to, like, I want her to like who her character is, who Anima used to be. So like I don't want to like turn her into something that the player is not comfortable with, but also like there are some things that I have control over. So I've been balancing that, has been fun, but there have been different moments where I just say, whenever she encounters something that I know she might have encountered in the past, I either have her roll wisdom if it's like a muscle memory kind of thing, or if she's trying to remember a specific person, it's intelligence. And she has the inability to roll below like a 19 or something, and she has no positive modifier to it, so she's actually gotten quite a few very specific flashbacks, some including names. So it's like taking what she's learned so far and weaving it into things, but I also did give... It's definitely a fun narrative tool, and doing since I'm doing this in a podcast format, I have the ability to do little bonus stuff, like I pull like a player or two players aside and just do things specifically with them. And it's a lot of fun narratively. Because there's also some things about their stories that they don't know.
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna move on to the next question. Oop, that's not the right one. Okay. Oh, this is another one that came from Star Shinobi, piggybacking on Zeal Zaddy. Have you ever given your player a near-death vision?
haven't almost
Near-death
killed
vision.
anyone yet, but I probably will. Those are fun to play with, but I've yet to put them in that dangerous situation.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever given any of them a near-death vision. A couple of them have been like close to death, but they didn't get anything out of it aside from excruciating pain.
I haven't brought any of my characters to a any of my players to the point of death, but I will say that one of my own characters actually had kind of a flash forward death moment, like essentially seeing what was going to happen, but I as a player and the character didn't quite realize what that was until it happened. And so it was a very like, it was a very like dawning of realization moment when it was like, oh, this was what that was.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
I
mean,
don't want to repeat myself, but I love them.
They are my
Yeah.
favorites.
Those kinds of situations are always just fantastic. And again, they're so versatile. It's like, oh, this player really, really loves this character. This character is currently in death saves. They're planning to multi-class next level. It would be a shame if something showed up and suddenly, some Eldritch Blasts were thrown out or something along those lines. Like, you can spruce it up. You can use it to create tension. You can use it to create or introduce characters. Everyone loves that one reveal in like TV shows where something dreadful happens and someone's just clinging on, and then someone shows up and you're like, who is that guy? Everyone loves those moments. So
It's awesome, yeah.
Also, just I'm going to preface this with spoiler, but one of the things I've used to help a character get a memory back is there was someone laying on the ground and their heart had stopped beating. And the medic was like frantically searching through her bag, and the player character noticed something fell out, and she rolled high enough to she instinctively grabbed it. It was basically an EpiPen, knew exactly what to do. And a couple of seconds later had the moment of, wait, how did I know how to do that? And then when she thought about it, she remembered a situation. Yeah, she rolled really high on this particular throw too. She remembered a situation where she had done that to save someone who was a really good friend of hers, which that's the one friend name that she knows. She now remembers and knows that she's saved a life before.
Aww.
So that was really fun to play with, and I was like, how do I make this happen? How do I make this happen? And I was like,
that's pretty cool.
I'm just gonna allergic reaction, sure.
I think it's a really good tool also when you have characters or not characters, but players that are resistant to have backstory or a lot of it. So in that moment, you sort of give them the choice of like, all right, it's time to step up and do a little role play, and you're gonna give me some information now, and we're gonna use that in the campaign. Not in a negative way, but just some players, if it's on the spot, they'll like, okay, as a cleric, I need to go complete this sacred quest. That's really what this is all about. That they didn't say anything in their backstory about. Like, oh, cool, there we go. So I think it's a good tool to get information out of your players, but use it wisely, GMs. Don't just go around killing your players. Be like, all right, now tell me what I want to know.
That's actually for my character. That's what it was. The DM for that particular game had been kind of watching all the players in the party, in the group, and was already kind of knew exactly how each player would react to certain situations, and so that's why he gave me this thing that he kind of hinted at. I know how your character is going to how this campaign's going to wrap up for your character. And I was like, oh, okay. So you know, and he's like, oh yeah, I know how this is going to work out for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then within the game, the character was being told that you're the linchpin for this. If you don't do this one thing, it hinges entirely on what you have. You're the one that has to do this one part thing. And so it's like, okay. And my character ended up having to sacrifice his own existence in order to ensure the survival of the rest of the party. And so it was a very bittersweet, powerful moment. Then I didn't see it coming, neither did the character.
We'll eventually be able to hear that story on Tales of Adventure.
Eventually we will be able to hear that story.
Assuming Craig didn't eat that one, because I don't know when he started eating audio, so I'm real worried.
It's sort of like halfway through, but hey, we can always re-record it.
Craig.
I've got like the Board the Apple Store crew. Just Craig comes on. No, hi. Just like immediately starts trash talking Craig. Disciples of the Eight immediately starts flirting and trying to seduce Craig. I'm like, why? Please stop flirting with my recording bot, please.
Craig's not even all that great. I mean, come on.
No, I mean Discord did break him, but
Obviously.
they need to put him back, okay? Fix him, please.
I remember I was in a Discord server when they first added Craig to their server.
Oh.
And they were trying to figure out like how to get him to join the voice channel and trying to get it all set up, which of course, if you've ever seen the setup piece for Craig, initially it's not very pretty. And and so it was so funny because, you know, finally they got it so that Craig would join, and then Craig wouldn't leave the voice chat when they were done. And so they'd be like, Craig, you know, like issuing the commands, Craig, leave, Craig, comma, leave. Like all of the different possibilities that it could be. And finally, everybody else in the Discord would just like chime in and be like, damn it, Craig, get out of voice chat.
Go away, Craig.
Go away, Craig.
He just wants to talk.
There was definitely one time after a session where an hour later, everyone's just like, Craig is still on. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he's still there.
Why, he might hear you.
Oh, gosh. Poor Craig. And Craig's twin brother, Jark.
Jark.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, fun fact, I can only get him to show. I was only ever able to get him to show up in my general voice chat. I have separate lockdown ones for my other productions, and even when he has permission, he still will not show up in those. I'm like, this is why I got you. Why do you not behave?
Fun stuff. All right, we're gonna for a very quick question. We have a silly question, silly-ish question from Manda. Amanda would like to know, what is your favorite beverage of choice while gaming?
Water.
Always a good choice.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's always required, because you'll be about halfway through a session and you'll suddenly just be, my mouth's really dry. Oh, right, yeah. Other than that, I always keep my. This is called the disappointment flask. So anytime my players do something that completely throws like everyone off and just does something ridiculous, every time I facepalm, every time I mess up, we'll see the disappointment flask show up.
How many times does it get refilled per session?
Yes.
Oh man.
No, I love my players, and
R.I.P.
my thing is always I always say I don't care about a overarching narrative. Like, I'm not telling the story. You're telling the story. I'm facilitating. So you can drop or pick up these threads as you want to and just mess around. But that also then does mean that the players go, it's like,
And
okay,
that's the key.
here is the disappointment flask.
I gotta agree. Water is like key drink for any sort of session, but I also like to mix it up with iced tea or sometimes a hot tea, depending on my mood.
You guys
tea
know.
with enough caffeine that you can see colors.
I haven't hit that point yet. The
Not see
100
colors,
cups.
not colors. I can't talk today. I'm sorry.
You guys can see colors?
The 100 cups of coffee for that Fry used in that Futurama episode. Yeah, I haven't hit that point where all of a sudden the world slows down.
You guys know mustard? Like
No.
that yellowish stuff?
Like the condiment,
Kind of thick, yeah.
No.
you drink it.
Comes
No.
No, I drink Sprite. Talking about drink mustard. That's ridiculous.
What?
Well,
That
I
was
was
an
just
awkward
checking
segue.
in. Seeing if we were all on the same page.
Speaking of awkward segues,
Oh my god.
Water's good too, though. Yeah, I don't drink water.
I couldn't breathe
Just
there
mess
for
around.
a second.
But that also then does.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
you know,
I will be going back to clip that later. Oh god. It really depends actually. If I'm in person, usually water or something along those lines. And then
ET's nice to have.
and then as it gets later in the evening, I'll generally switch, unless it's like the middle of the summer, and then I won't switch to hot tea, but then I'll usually switch to hot tea. When I'm online gaming, I do it in reverse. I start with hot tea and then switch to water. Although occasionally I have been known to enjoy a gin and tonic on stream instead. So tonight was ginger ale. That's what I had earlier.
Hard cider is a nice day.
there you go.
Yeah, hard cider is a
Someone who
good
makes
choice.
their living talking, just water all the time. But
Yeah.
I have two forms of water. One that I drink in a spray bottle for when people act up. Just like, like a cat. Just bad.
Set it to mist or to stream.
Oh, full stream. It's actually just a spray bottle top hooked up to a hose, so it's like
There
a
you go.
pressure washer.
Yeah, it's just-
Pressure washer.
Hey, not gonna lie, there are some days where I would like to have that in the store.
Oh.
Whether to use on customers or whether to use to mess with my coworkers, because there's one that calls me work mom, so I've started calling him work son. And
Oh,
yeah, that's...
Oh.
I somehow ended up training two people at the same time, which was
oh,
fun.
jeez.
After about 30 minutes of it was just kind of me standing between them. It just there to answer questions.
Fun stuff. All right, so one of you here knows somebody in chat who goes by Eldrac_friend of Grave Dust. I'm assuming. Question. I have a DM who loves to railroad. How can I stop it? Kidding! And then they go on to say, my real question, on last night's game, I asked if someone could toss me away from an enemy, and if they did, would that provoke an attack of opportunity on me or the person tossing me? We never had a final answer.
Oh.
Neither. Rules as written, neither.
I mean, rules is written, yeah.
Yeah, if you take a look at the basic rules, it specifically says you can't trigger an attack of opportunity when you're teleporting or when someone or something moves you without you using your movement reaction or action. If you choose to do something extra that your DM lets you do, for example, if you're being thrown and you want to attack the person that's being thrown, but you have to use your reaction, for example, then you could be opportunity attacked. But rules as written, no. But obviously, whatever happens at your table, happens at your table.
And to
Is
clarify,
there a story behind why you know that immediately?
Yes.
Is that a 5e
Very
rule?
right.
Just so that we're clear?
Yeah, that's
It is a
a
5e.
5e thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. And yes, because Have you ever seen those like circus performances where like the two people grab each other and then like one throws the other across and they kind of twist and then
Yes.
they twist again and then they twist again? Someone in one of my old campaigns when I started DMing 5e was like, "Hey, so if we both just strapped swords to our feet, could we just go ahead and throw each other around and use each other as weapons?" And I had to then go into the rulebook and find out how opportunity attacks work. So that's why I know that off by heart, is because of that.
That's a pretty. People can be
I
super
love
creative.
Love that.
Oh no, they really can. There's been a lot of jokes because I have one character that's big and strong and everyone else is like short and skinny. So there've been jokes about just like strapping one on the front, one on the back, and going into combat. And for me, I would probably make up some kind of roll to do to see if you can like throw the person without like getting them in the way of enemy attacks. But I would let it happen because that could be really funny.
It's for me. It's always, and this is my player. This is my best friend, and he's in my campaign. It didn't actually happen. He after he ended up killing the. So just to set the scene here, he is a gnome, and he killed a frost giant. He got the killing blow on a frost giant.
Wow.
And so and that was his thing. But then he's like, well, what I wanted to do was, and he went into this whole thing about could I be thrown. And for me, it's always, when it comes to the rules, specific beats general, but rule of cool beats everything. And I was thinking about it, and at first I was like, well, then I was like, you know what? I'd have let it happen, because that's just awesome. If your construct throws you out of the way, sure.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Absolutely.
I mean, there might be like a dex roll or a strength roll, or are you going along with this? Might have to be a contest if you don't want to be thrown. Yeah, I'm all about anytime someone's like, can I do something crazy? I'm like, yes, but please describe it first.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
I
can't describe it,
encourage
it
this,
doesn't happen.
but let me know what you're doing.
Well,
I think
good.
that's definitely the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
Rule of cool.
I'm glad we were able to get a solid answer on that, by the way.
So start throwing people.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Just
Great.
start throwing people.
I had the last
when
campaign
you
that I
have
played.
barbarian wielding barbarians, it's just gonna happen.
Yeah. I had the last campaign that I played in prior to this one was I was a halfling and we had like a 7-foot tall barbarian in the party, and you can bet we took pretty good advantage of that. There was a lot of times that my character would be like, gunner, shield, and the two of them would train together a lot in their downtime. So they had this system set up where he would brace his shield in just the right way, and she would run and jump off the shield and stab something with her sword.
I love that.
Yes.
That's
Have
awesome.
you
Pack
seen the
tactics.
picture where it's like? Have you seen the picture where it's like there's like a little thing where you could like strap over your shoulders with a platform, and it's like sphere halfway
Yep.
to stand on with the crossbows.
Oh yes, we got tagged in that multiple times across the interwebs.
Two players in my campaign that I run. One's just a really tall Asimar.
Mm-hmm.
She's just like 10 feet. She's like, can it be like 10 feet tall? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? be stretch.
Fun.
First mistake.
And
Lots of dex saving throws when going through doorways.
and another player is just like a gnome, essentially, just small. And so they already worked out. They're like, we want to do the fastball special.
Fastball special.
Just hurl the gnome. And they kept talking about, they're like, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be great.
Oh no.
The first combat they get into they get an opportunity to do it in. She lifts up the gnome. I was like, since you're using her as a projectile, make an attack roll.
Oh,
Nat
no.
1.
Oh
It
no!
was beautiful. They really should. I was like, you really should have practiced more. As you just trying to hurl her face first at the feet of the enemy. They still took some damage because that gnome was covered in daggers. So it worked in a way, just not in the best way.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Does the gnome turn into a caltrop at that point?
You know what? I think that would be fair to rule as a yes.
I mean, if it's
They
covered
have
in
to be
daggers.
lying like this.
Yeah, but
Terrain.
then my question is, does the gnome survive being a caltrop?
Oh, she was fine. I think what's a little bit of damage. She's a barbarian. She can take it.
That's all good.
I love gnome barbarians.
Oh yeah.
Fun.
I played, I was at a Christmas one shot, and they played a gnome barbarian named Candy Cane. She dressed as a little frilly and girly, and one of her weapons was a mace. It looks like just this bundle of bright red bows. And whenever she hits something with it, there's like this little like puff of glitter.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh. That's fantastic.
So good.
I love it. I love it.
That whole one shot was just wild.
All right. So another question that Zeal Zaddy had. In what ways have you attempted to get diversity in your players? How successful were your attempts? And by diversity, Zeal Zaddy is referring to like BIPOC, LGBTQ, and minorities in general, anything like that.
I will have to say that, unfortunately, I have been unsuccessful in any attempt to get any sort of diversity in my games. But then again, I'm not running any games right now. I'm only part of them. The group that I'm running is just the kids.
Yeah.
It's I have a 50-50 split between genders, but I don't have any. I have not played with a huge variety of individuals, but I am also I personally am very open and welcoming to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I have plenty of interactions online with them. I just don't play with them at the moment. So
For me, with a board viewable star, I specifically chose like people I already knew and worked well with, because like this was my first time ever doing anything. So like I wanted to at least like have that to lean on, but I definitely plan in any future campaigns that I do, and I'm also trying to make sure I have good diversity in my one shots. So sometimes it's kind of a please, I need people. I'm definitely planning on, because I have some ideas for like shorter campaigns using other systems where I plan to be more intentional about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. In the game I run, honestly, it was just the first people who volunteered to be in the game, because that was because that was my first time DMing, doing anything. I'd say LGBTQ representation, we have pretty decent. Like, there's myself and a couple other members in my group who are players in that. And the group I'm a player in, I think we've been able to get a much better, just a much more diverse group going on of different races and sexual orientations. It's nice. It's just nice to get to experience, see other people's experiences come out at the table like that. Because I think all of that can just really bring out like these different, amazing, fun characters that mesh in ways you wouldn't have possibly like. I can't picture the word I'm trying to say. Good character interaction. So I'd say first game not as great. Second game pretty good.
Connor, was the word you were looking for mustard?
I'm always looking for mustard.
Oh God.
I'm gonna laugh every time I hear that word. When
yeah,
someone
now mustard has taken on a whole new meaning.
Be like that sometimes.
I've had so many words and so many things ruined for all these different ways. It's just It's fine. I have weird reactions to most things. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. They're probably right.
Words aren't ruined, they're enhanced.
That's a better way of looking at it. They're enhanced.
They're given flavor, texture.
like mustard.
Yeah, like the flavor and texture of mustard.
But what kind of mustard?
Well, I mean, if we're talking Dijon or perhaps a brown,
I feel like honey mustard would do. Like, it looks like it should feel gritty, right? It looks like it's sandy.
What happened to this conversation?
I don't know. Luna, you're gonna have to get us back on track here.
Okay, great.
Something went wrong.
Let's see.
We literally have someone.
What was the question?
We literally have
How-
awkward segues in this conversation.
It was getting diversity.
Yeah,
right?
yes, that's right, yes.
That was the question. Okay, I'm gonna jump on my soapbox for a little second here because it's a topic that I feel very strongly about, and
But
I, as Ray, and we, as Friends of Roll Dice, have done a lot of work into this. How do you get diversity into your games? You look. And it's not hard to look. There are so many players looking for homes that are disabled, that are queer, that are black, that are POC individuals. You just have to, one, curate your space so that you're including those people, and two, give people the actual opportunity to go ahead and work with people who are also marginalized. When we were recruiting for a bunch of the one-shots for Friends of Roll Dice, we were like, right, it has to be... If we're going to go ahead and do this, and do this right, we need to make sure that we're not tokenizing people.
Right.
If you've got one POC individual, or one disabled individual, or one queer individual, that's not diversity, that's tokenism. For diversity, it needs to be more. People need to see other people like themselves at the table. We have usually 50-50 casts, we try, of white and BIMPOC individuals. A lot of those will also be queer or disabled or anything along those lines. It's more if you feel like no one is coming to you. If you're looking for diversity and you're not finding it, it's because you haven't curated your space to be accepting towards that. There's usually something that you can do that will pull people towards you because, yeah, they are people like that are out there. There are so many disabled TTRPG players. There are so many queer TTRPG players. There are so many BIMPOC TTRPG players. All you got to do is just reach out and grab them and give them a space and make sure that they're not feeling like they're tokenized. Because that's a mistake that I've seen with a lot of TTRPG groups, is they'll grab one black player or one queer player and say, we're diverse. No, you're not. So that's my little soapbox. Make sure that people can see themselves in the tables that you're running.
Well said.
Makes sense, yeah. Well said.
Yep.
Well said.
All right. Well, that's probably a good place to transition to the next question, because I don't know that we will get a better answer than that. Let's see. Diagnosed Matt would like to know. This question popped off on the Twitters, so I'm curious on your all's take. Do you ever feel truly prepared as a DM or player for a new campaign, session, etc.?
No.
Never.
I didn't even have an idea for what the big bad was going to be until we had been recording for like 3 or 4 months. And every time I'm like, I think I'm actually prepared. 5 minutes into the session, I'm like, nope, I'm not.
Just kidding.
Not prepared.
I saw this on Twitter today. I don't know if it was the same thread that they were talking about, but in mine, and I recommend this resource all the time for new GMs and even GMs that have been doing it for a while, but still just they have session prep paralysis where they're like, I don't know what to do. And that is the book Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, because they outline a fantastic method of doing, sort of making you feel like you've done the right amount of prep without worrying too much about what happens if my players go the complete opposite way. You break it up. You have your scenes and your characters. And I don't want to say too much about it because it's an IP, and I don't want to give away what's in the book. But it's a fantastic resource, and it's a fairly short read. He gets right to the point in every chapter and just outlines, here's what you do, and by the end of it, and I just have a OneNote, and you can use an actual physical notebook if you wanted. You can use Word, whatever sort of software you want to use, and then you just go right down the list. And usually 30 minutes is the max prep time I need to run a decent session. Now, the more time I put into it, obviously the better it gets, but some weeks it's like, oh, hey, game starts in 30 minutes. I completely forgot. What am I going to do? And you throw stuff together. And sometimes those are the best sessions. Sometimes the less you prep, the more fun it is, because you don't feel like you have to force your characters to do all the things. Because if you spend 8 hours on this one scene and they completely go around it, you get real salty about it.
They will.
And they will.
Absolutely.
I have a gift for noping around combat, and my party in Disables of the 8 has a really good gift for going exactly where we need to go in dungeon crawls. Hence the fact none of us have magic items, and we're level 7. It's not good.
I mean, for so many games, I have spent, hours and hours getting the intro scene ready, getting the introductory sequence ready, and then they go left, and I was so ready for them to go straight, and they went left, and I went, oh nuts. Okay then, cool. And I mean, as a DM, you do have to realize that it's not always going to work, and that's why improv can be so important for a dungeon master to be like, okay, all right, grab that and move to the next scene. I honestly feel that I am as prepared as I think I am never going to be totally prepared.
Yeah. I also have a gift for sometimes I will sit there just drastically way overthinking things, over planning things, and then I'm this is perfect. And then it happens, I'm like, that was not anywhere near as good as I thought that was going to be. That it's just that was just very anticlimactic. I overthought it. I tried to get too clever, and it was dumb. And it's so easy to overthink things sometimes. I'm still trying to kind of get a better handle for my style of preparing for sessions, which is perks of having characters be on a spaceship is it's a little easier to control where they're going to end up. So less likely for them to wander off onto a street, but once they get on the planet side, they can still wander off onto a street. It's just kind of trying to focus on more of creating sort of the sandbox and the things for sure will happen at some point. Different sequences of events and then kind of going from there. But yeah, I overthink a lot.
Another thing to take into consideration too is if you get into your session, and this is more for usually if you blow through your content quicker than you expect, because usually it's the other way around. You usually plan a bunch of stuff, you're like, oh god, I don't know if there's going to be enough, and then 4 hours later you're like, oh, we got to check box 1, that's it. But every now and then things just go really quick. It's okay to end a session a little bit early so you don't end up waffling around and ending up off your story arc too much, or the players can sort of tell when you get to that point where I really don't have anything here. It doesn't become as much fun. So even if you were planning to sit down and play for 4 or 6 hours or whatever, if you run out of stuff, just break out a board game and do something for the last couple hours. It goes better that if you just be honestly, everyone, I'm not ready for the next part, so we're going to have to call it there. And it fosters better will than trying to fudge it.
Yeah, because some things, you might be able to fudge a little bit, other things, it's just, there have been times when the player's like, can I look up this? I'm like, yes, can I get you those answers next session when I've actually had time to write them down?
Right, yeah.
And they're like, Okay.
My
Thankfully, they understand that I don't always have like everything 100% prepared. With the amount of times I've had to name things on the spot and just like throw things into the wind. So like, yes, I'm used to not always having everything ready, but I try to at least have like the basics and names for things. And then I try and frantically write down whatever I have to BS along the way, so that when I have to go look back, I don't forget what I ended up saying about that point. Like, I just recently realized there was a character I introduced. Didn't remember if I'd actually given her a name. I
Oops.
named them. I did give them a name. It's a code name now. It's fine.
I think my strategy is a little weird, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I don't usually worry about feeling ready to go into a session because I don't really prep. For me, the way of GMing that I have found the most comfortable is because I have this setting that has so much lore that has been created by my players. Because I am comfortable in this setting, I know everyone in this setting. I know people's motives. I know groups' motives. I know how they work. And so when something happens in game, I automatically know the reaction because I know these people. I know what drives them. I know their goals. But then on the flip side, kind of looping all the way back to what we started is, the weakness of that is that I struggle to run moduled games because I don't know those people. I'm not in the headspace. So if it's a moduled thing, I never feel ready. Ever. I feel like I'm looking like, who is this person? What do they do again? Why are they here? Wait a minute, which town were they in? Like, yeah. For me, in my regular sessions, I'm more than happy to just, it's kind of a spoiler, sorry, Mind of the Martyr people. But yeah, I don't plan, I don't prep. I have anchors that I put in place. I tie people's backstories together before the game has even started, attaching it to the lore of the world, and then I put anchors in place for people to be drawn to. If they feel lost, they can make their own story from those anchors. Luckily, that hasn't been the case. People have just gone ahead and settled right into their characters and have thrown everyone for a loop multiple times. But again, I know how the world works, so that's kind of my way of handling those situations.
Yeah. I found some of my most successful sessions where it's like I set up like an area in a situation and they have to accomplish X, and then being like, okay, so how are you going to do that? And just like building the sandbox. I'm not as great at like certain types of like dungeon crawls. I still sometimes get nervous with certain combat encounters. I don't know why. It's probably just in my head, but I'm trying to get better about that. But something I've been doing is like, I know there's a thing coming up where like they're going to like try and find a person. So how I'm trying to approach that is like, what's an interesting way, like an interesting sandbox to put them in to set up that, like to help them like set up them being able to find out who this person is. And then how do I get them to not immediately kill them? Because that would be not good.
Yes. All right, we have one last question that I want to try to quickly squeeze in an answer to before we have to start winding down. So, it's Jazzy time. Would like to know. I have a question that may pertain to both the DM and players. A lot of time, first sessions, and this was sort of hit on a little bit ago in kind of a weird way. A lot of times, first sessions of a campaign can be awkward as players and characters are trying to find ways to mesh together. Any advice on how both the players and the DM can maybe smooth over the awkwardness a little?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is a good question. And unfortunately, it's like, of course, that's the one that comes in like as we're getting near the end. So
Yeah, that's a toughie.
I'd say that's the big importance, at least part of it to me, of a session 0.
Yeah.
Not just where they can individually make their characters with you if they want to have like some kind of secrets, but also so where they can kind of communicate and they'll already have an idea of what their other characters' personalities are going to be like. So they can already start thinking of ways that they want to mesh. Like, oh, maybe they weren't planning on having their characters know each other before this, but now they're siblings.
I've actually done that one before.
They're Siamese twins.
I played a one-shot where
Oh,
somebody and I were doing characters that, like, in our heads had never met before. And then we got to chatting during kind of like a pre-stream session. And we were like, hey, guess what? They're long-lost siblings now.
Yeah, I was in a plot hooks one shot where like I'm like, I have this character, she's like half Eladrin, half something else, and someone's like, hey, my character's Eladrin. I'm like, hey, do you want to be cousins? We were cousins. We looked absolutely nothing alike. But yeah, we just decided we were cousins, and it was great. Now Scarlett's always gonna have a cousin, but yeah. Yeah, session 0 is really helpful, and something I've been playing with an idea for. I do have a campaign idea one wrote at some point where it's like the party's gonna have worked together a lot in the past. So something I'm playing with the idea of doing is like after session 0, have like a couple of sessions where it's just random one-off adventures, so they can like establish that sort of like rapport and like settle into what that dynamic will look like before we record the actual like first canon session.
I think for me, I have to agree. It's trying to find some sort of commonality between the characters in some way. The one way that I saw this work really well was in the first campaign I started playing long term a few years ago, which has since ended. The DM said that all of the characters all were within this one tiny little village. So we all basically had the knowledge that, well, we're all in this small village. There's not many people here. Obviously, there's going to be character connections between your characters. So, and then it was left up to us to create those links between the characters. I'm a hunter. I go and see the blacksmith. The blacksmith is, needs to get material from the tanner and that kind of a thing. And so the character relationships came together naturally in that way, and because they already had that knowledge of one another, it made easing into the adventure much easier.
I'm going to take an approach from the player standpoint, or not from the player standpoint, but for the players that come, because a lot of times in this hobby, we get people that are not comfortable in social situations, and just getting the people, not even as their characters, but just the people to interact can be tough. So I'm a big fan of actually improv warm-ups. I'm sure two of you are familiar with those sorts of things, and just to get them to start interacting, and even just having them ask each other, icebreaker kind of questions, and find some commonality at a personal level, so they feel more comfortable, and then not forcing the issue of role playing. If somebody's not comfortable at first, forcing them to do it just makes it worse. So I like to let them warm up to it, and usually you'll have at least one person in the group that's all about it and gets into it, and then eventually more people will join in.
Right. Well, Brianna's computer froze, so she's restarting her computer real quick. So that's where she disappeared off to, and that's why we're all gonna shift positions for a second. And it's so funny that happened too, because we had somebody join in our Discord today who legitimately had a question about that, and was asking, we're getting ready to start streaming our first campaign. We're going to start in March, and we're trying to get some tech stuff figured out. And so I said, oh, we do all of our stuff through Discord and so on and so forth. And that was literally the first question they asked is, if somebody drops off the call, does it shift everybody's cameras around? Here you go. This is what it looks like.
This is what happens.
Sorry about-
I'm the gamer mom now. Now that I see the stream over there.
I know. We had a usurper for a minute. Oh.
Usurper.
I know. We had that one time too. David Tilstra was on, and that happened to him. He got bumped into my spot.
I was looking like down. I was like, oh, David is now Luna. Okay,
Yeah.
then.
You don't choose to become the gamer mom.
No.
The gamer mom chooses you.
I know.
I'm like
It's
pretty,
so,
pretty
ahead.
solid person to get chosen to be other gamer mom. So it fits.
I was so distracted, I've now forgotten the question.
I know. Basically, it sounds like the long story short is have a session 0.
It really is, and try to and don't worry about being the characters. Just work on finding that commonality between the characters in one way or another.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the idea Curtis brought up of having that improv warm up thing. To get a conversation happening between 2 characters or 4 characters and finding something together that way,
Yeah.
because that's a very organic way of building character relationships.
It's
Yeah.
also absolutely okay as a player if you are not comfortable with the group to walk away.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And conversely, and I see this question all the time from GMs and DMs. I'm really not comfortable with this one player. What should I do? Well, you talk to them, and if they don't change, you tell them you're not welcome anymore.
Absolutely.
I know it's hard, but that's the social contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is almost why I recommend doing your first couple of sessions off stream.
Agreed.
Because, or if
Yeah.
you are streaming at least, because you want to get to know who you're playing with and make it gel well. You'll almost, even if you're just doing a home campaign, do a couple of sessions that are prequel / maybe not canon, just to get people, 1, into their mindset as their characters, and 2, into their mindset as players, and see who gels and who doesn't. Another thing that I've done for Mind of the Martyr, we have a server that we set up that we can just hang out as people as well, which actually helps. A lot of people kind of glance over that part. It's nice to also know them as people. We have a meme channel, we have a general channel, we check in it doesn't have to be every single day.
Yeah.
It's just, every few days someone will post something, people will laugh, that's it. We also have a question rolls section of the server where people will go ahead and roll a D100 and get a random character question that they answer in character, which helps develop both the understanding for everyone else of where your character is coming from, but also how that person is thinking about that character. I think that helps kind of tie those threads together as well.
Oh, I love that.
I would
And
like
it's
to
a
know more about
less-
this.
Because it's literally just roll a dice, get a question, answer a question. It helps people who aren't perhaps as socially adept, because it's not as taxing, it's not as straining.
Yeah.
It's literally just you're answering a question
Yeah.
and you can do it in your own time.
Yeah.
And then when everyone's answered, you roll another dice. So yeah, just little things like that is what I'd recommend. And yeah, don't have that pressure to be like, okay, we have to go on stream, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's like, slow down.
Yeah.
Fun first, safety first.
There you go.
Breathe.
Also, and I with my players in particular, because we already had good dynamics between us, because we were all best friends in college, so we know each other well, we trust each other, we have a lot of interest in common. But we started with podcasting because I do not have the equipment or knowledge to do a stream quite yet, and B, I'm I felt especially for first time, it would be easier and more comfortable for everyone. Because, yes, people will be listening to this, but, like, after it's been edited and cleaned up. So, like, if you want to, like, redo something or retcon something or whenever we get distracted, there's less pressure because they're not staring at you.
Yeah.
Yet.
The other piece, too, about getting to know each other personally, you know, as each other and not just as characters is that I know for us on our Wednesday night stream, that allows you to know when someone's having an off night or not, which could impact how they play or what their character does or things like that, because there'll be a lot of times when, you know, I might just be really quiet for the night and I'll get a message from, you know, one of our other players that says like, hey, you're not talking very much tonight, everything okay? You know, because we know each other well enough to know that that could be an indicator that something else is going on. And, you know, usually we'll just say, yeah, I'll explain later. Or it might just be like, nope, I just have nothing to say right now. You know, my character just is listening or whatever it may be. So it allows us to sort of have that that connection as well, which I think is really important. But
also found it's nice to sometimes have meetings or video chats where you're just kind of hanging out, just have hangouts.
We play Jackbox games together.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All
I'll
right.
play Animal Crossing. I don't have as much.
All right. Well, on that note, we need to wrap up for the night. So what I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to just have you guys go, we're going to go clockwise this time. And I'll have you just remind everybody of who you are and where they can find you online. If you have links you want anybody to follow, we'll put those in chat again as well. So Connor, we're going to start with you this time.
Hey, as a reminder, Connor, Masterful Nerd on Twitter. Awkward Segue is available to listen to on pretty much any podcast platform, Spotify, iTunes, the Google one. You like Pandora? We can do it on Pandora. It's not just that. Avatar Planet. That's really... Do I have anything? I have a song, a D&D song I just remembered existed. You want to check that out? It's called Primal Champion. You'll find it. It's like a barbarian thing. Next.
Again, my name's Aaron, ShadyGod13 on Twitter. If you're interested in improv comedy, I am a founding member of the off-brand improv comedy troupe based out of here in Massachusetts. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we are doing our best to come back and do more improv despite the pandemic. So links you can find in the chat.
Yes.
I am at Prof. Satterfield on Twitter, and I'm not a content creator, but always hanging out on Twitter and always willing to answer questions and promote the community. I'm a promoter as well. I like to bump up those content creators and retweet. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. And Ray.
Hello, I'm Ray. I'm sorry for yawning so much. It's just 3 a.m. So that's the only reason.
Time zones,
yes,
man.
time zones. You can find me at Red Mage Ray on Twitter. You can also take a look at Friends Who Roll Dice, the TTRPG group that I helped co-found, who are all about showcasing awesome people that don't usually or may not feel like they have a voice sometimes, and raising money for some awesome charities. We're a little bit quiet at the moment through January while we organize a couple of projects, but we have at least at least 3 charity drives through February and March, which is super excited. I can't talk about any of them, but it's cool. If you like what you heard from me, consider also checking out The Mind of the Martyr, which is the weekly show that plays on Friends Who Roll Dice, which I GM in the homebrew setting that I was talking about. So that is 6 p.m. PT And then you can also find VODs on the channel, Friends Who Roll Dice, or the Friends Who Roll Dice YouTube channel. And I am about everywhere, on a few different places. On God knows how many channels. You can find me over on Polish Cryptid. You can find me on Saverix channel. Just go ahead and check out my Twitter, and you'll see when we're going live.
Sounds great.
Right, and I'm Brianna Jean. If you want to find me on Twitter, find Pseudonym Social first, and I think my Twitter handle's at the thing because my last name's a pain in the butt to spell, and I really need to change that. But we have a new episode of Disciples of the Eight coming out this coming Friday. It's going to be episode 3. Here Comes the Kraken, and and then we have episode 20 of Aboard the Opal Store coming out Monday, and they're both every other week, Monday and Friday. So that just happens to work out where one comes out Friday, the other one comes out Monday, and then nothing for like a couple of days.
There you go.
And I've got some other small projects and collaborations in the work, but if you ever want a guest for things, either to play something or to talk about stuff, I'm down for that. Freelance editing, all kinds of stuff. Please get me out of retail.
We're going to start a hashtag.
Also, possibly working on a couple of audio dramas, but that'll be coming out like a lot later because that's a lot of work.
It is. All right. Well, I am Gamer Mom Luna. This has been this week's episode of Tales from the Tavern. You can find us here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, where we bring in a roundtable of guests when we talk about TTRPGs and all things nerdy. You can also find us on Wednesday nights, also at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, where we do 50 Shades of Crimson, which is a Curse of the Crimson Throne Pathfinder 1st Edition persistent campaign, actual play campaign, and that's a lot of fun. We just suffered our first player death this week, so that was a little traumatic for all of us, and so now we just refer to him as Dead Mark Tov. And that's it. We've got a Star Wars campaign that's going to be coming up soon. I know we keep talking about it. It's really coming soon. We were waiting on some artwork. That's going to be starting probably in the next couple of months. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye on our Twitter. And then we did, just so everybody knows, we had one question come in just as we were starting to wrap up. So I promised that we would answer it. We would get it posted on Twitter, and people could answer it there. So look for that on Twitter tomorrow morning at Shared EXP RPG on Twitter. And we are going to go raid INDG. So have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
That was fun. That was fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome.
That was
I love doing these.
That was a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. That was a really good time, tech issues aside.